After reviewing the tape, was very pleased with the effort that our guys gave against Michigan State. It's not effort. They were in it. They were very engaged, played hard, played physical at times on both sides of the ball. And as I mentioned after the game, execution has to be better in critical moments. And disappointing in how it ended. There's no question about that. We had multiple opportunities, I thought, to stretch the lead earlier in the game, and have to find ways to close games like that out in order to beat teams in the Big Ten. So, but was very pleased with the effort. Thought the guys in a situation right now where we're at could go a lot of different directions. Did not feel like our guys handled adversity, and they pushed through a lot of adversity and found a way to give ourselves a chance to win it at the end. And that's why I'm excited moving forward. We got a great team in Purdue coming in this week, just finding ways to win. They don't care if they got to score a lot of points or play great defense. They're finding ways to win week in and week out, and it's a big challenge for this football team.
Jim, you mentioned execution. If we can go back to Braylon Allen's fumble, it looked like that corner just came on a run blitz. The corner was on Jim. But I'm assuming someone was supposed to get out on the linebacker who eventually stripped the ball. Was that an example of not executing the blocking or that play that led to that fumble?
Yeah, I thought they had great timing on the pressure. I'm not 100% sure on the rules of how they wanted to pick it up, but obviously great timing, as far as calling the pressure and executing it. And linebackers, I think, leading the Big Ten, maybe the country, in forced fumbles. So he showed up in a big way, in a big moment for that team. And I didn't think it was a lack of ball security. I think Braylon saw the corner and reacted to him, and he's got to be smart as he's going to the ground with that second man in. But obviously the guy is doing a tremendous job forcing turnovers this season, and they needed one in the worst way, and they got it.
Jim, you mentioned a couple weeks ago your initial conversations with the committed recruits have been encouraging. What's your perspective on commits who may be considering visiting other schools simply because they're just uncertain about what the future may hold for them?
Yeah, I think just as we've done with the team, we have to embrace the reality right now. There is a lot of uncertainty, right? There's uncertainty for the whole program and the staff, and we're aware of that. And we also have to try to continue to push to teach and educate the players on what this place has consistently been, right? From a culture, from standards, from expectations to our players, and really what we provide and what the UW experience is all about. And you're trying to get them to understand how consistent that has been over time and how it will continue to be consistent while we're trying to grow as a program and in some cases take things in a different direction. The hardest part is there aren't many guarantees, right? We don't know what's going to happen at the end of the season as far as myself remaining in this role or what the role is going to look like, and the rest of the staff as well. So that's what makes things difficult, right? You can't beat around the bush there. It is uncertain on what the future and direction of this program is going to be. As soon as we find that out, we will push very hard to continue to recruit. But I think we know the kids who are drawn to this place. We have a great class that is committed at this point, and you're just trying to push them through the storm a little bit and continue to educate them on where we're going as a program.
Jim, you mentioned a couple days ago that it's not ideal when you have to mix in as many offensive linemen as you had, and trying to get 5 guys to play as one with that many changes is difficult. But as you've been reviewing the tape, is there anything that you've seen that's just caused some of the inconsistent play with the guys that have been on the field?
I think a number of issues. You're seeing some guys in bigger roles than maybe they're ready for in some cases, across the board, not just talking offensive line. I think there are guys that have been thrown into roles out of necessity that may be a little bit over their head, and we have to find a way to simplify. We have to find a way to create consistency, which is hard to do, but at the same time, you have to have a game plan that causes problems for the other team. So that's where our guys have to have a little bit of baptism by fire, and you have to be able to execute a game plan to beat Big Ten teams. And then as coaches, we have to be smart enough to not do things that look great on paper and put our players, right, who are our players, and put them in the best position to win. I think that is the message from the coaching staff to each other, right, week in and week out, right? It's been a revolving door with injuries at a number of positions. What can they execute? Not once, right? What can they execute consistently? And I think that's where the game plans have bounced back and forth a little bit from week to week, maybe a little bit more than we've liked.
Forgot to ask you this the other night. When you scored in overtime, did you consider going for two there, considering how the defense was playing at that point?
Yeah, that was definitely a thought. I still felt like at that point we had outplayed them at times, and I thought at that point in the game extending it was the right thing to do. But obviously I'm going to be very critical. I've had these conversations with the staff of every big moment that's come up the last 2 weeks, and obviously Northwestern was a little bit cleaner than this last one. Like, what could we do differently? Timeout. Should we have went for this? 2-point conversion here, timeout there, everything. I'm going to be ultra critical just with my lack of experience in those situations, and I feel confident that we made the decisions that were right on game day and continue to grow as this season goes on every time we get in those situations. But I did think it was the right thing to kick the extra point and get it on into the second overtime, and we have to execute better. You know, we have to play much better, and you know, even defensively, I thought we rose to the occasion on that second overtime, and you get them to a third and long. I don't think they were very comfortable kicking that field goal, and if that's an incompletion, I feel really good about us potentially getting that thing into a third overtime. And they made a great throw and a great catch, and you have to give them a little bit of credit as well.
Jim, last year when Ches went down with the knee injury, you guys had to rely on Braylon Allen a lot down the stretch, and after the season, he eventually said, I got a little bit beat up and worn down. First game without Ches, he had the overwhelming majority of the carries Saturday. Do you have to be aware that as good as he is as your number one back, maybe you guys have to force yourself to not put too much on him, to maybe give him a little break now and then if you can with other guys?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a dynamic playmaker that needs to remain one. And if we wear him out, obviously his effectiveness will not be the same going down the stretch. So we're aware of that. You know, obviously Isaac was coming off an injury, right? So limits his role a little bit going into a game, especially from the game planning standpoint of what can you count on. But as a number of positions are happening, we have to be able to trust the depth we have. We have to be able to find roles for some of the guys, you know, deeper down our depth in order to keep guys fresh and really be able to close out games just like that one, right? That's the biggest thing we have to find a way to do is as games get closer, we have to be comfortable to get guys on the field to give people a spell in order to be able to win those fourth quarters and finish the way we need to.
Jim, how have you seen Bobby April's role grow during your time together? Has it expanded in the last few weeks with you being stretched a little further? What are his strengths as a coach in general?
So happy Bobby April's one of our coaches. We have a background that is very similar, right? We see the game from a game planning standpoint very similar in similar ways and try to attack offenses. And he's been very valuable to me this entire time he's been here. We've been able to keep it pretty consistent from a game planning standpoint, having me involved and calling it on game days. You know, third down, he's huge. He's a huge part of that. Early in the week with the run game, just little adjustments up front. He's always been very beneficial. So, you know, so far through 2 weeks, we've been able to keep things pretty consistent after the change. But if it ever gets to the point where I feel like that's not the right thing to do, I trust Coach April and the rest of our defensive staff to really pick up the slack if I feel like I need to step away from either play calling or some of the game planning.
Jim, how do you think Alexander Smith played in his first game? And do you expect maybe a little increased playing time for him? And maybe do you like him inside, outside? Where do you see him at right now?
Yeah, we thought Alexander played very well. The biggest thing with him is just it's been a long enough time. It's making sure the conditioning is there, right? How many plays can he play week in and week out? But he handled the role we asked him to do last week very well, and I continue to see that expanding as the season progresses. And he has the ability to play inside. He has the ability to play outside. He also has the ability to play safety, which we're also beat up at that position. So we love his versatility, and he will continue to grow within this defense. We got a lot of confidence in his skill set, and it's just trying to manage kind of the conditioning at this point of the season, having missed, majority of training camp and the first half of the season.
Jim, with Marcus Allen, we didn't see him, how you didn't play on Saturday. Just curious if that was just a matter of him being jumped on the depth chart, and two, just what was that conversation like with him making the decision to move on?
Yeah, I think it's game day's always, to me, in the coach's hands. Who gives us the best opportunity to win, and what role do you feel confident putting guys on the field? You don't want to put guys on the field to not have success. And I'm not micromanaging the offense and who's on the field right now. I want those guys to be confident in the plays they call. I want them to be confident with the 11 on the field. And if that's what they determined was the best group to be on the field on game day to give us the best chance to win, I'm gonna trust them in those situations for the rest of the season. These conversations every week, unfortunately, it's a broken record right now, right? And when you're not having success, when guys are not, don't feel like they're growing and developing the way that they expected, right, off of the recruiting process, they get frustrated. And it's difficult to watch sometimes. You see guys going through situations where they just need to push and grow through, and then others, a change of scenery is the correct thing. They're all going to be unique. They're all going to be different. I'm going to tell you that over and over again. It's very hard, and I guess maybe I have a unique perspective from myself playing on so many teams and understanding how difficult it is to change scenery and thrive, right? That's one that is difficult for me to see. That's the new culture in college football, though. So maybe I have a little bit different perspective on trying to stick things through than others, but I've also had a change of scenery that's worked out very well multiple times in my career. So not sure what's right or wrong, but these guys are going through some big feelings and big emotions right now, and they're making tough, lifelong decisions off of it.
Jim, this is a Purdue offense that's coming off a 600-yard performance, and I believe they were 6 or 7 in red zone conversions. How do you think your defense matches up coming into this week?
Yeah, this is always a unique test when you play Purdue with the efficiency that they throw the football. I think right now they're having even more success because there is a little bit more commitment to the run game than sometimes when you play them. Feels like the last few years we've played them, they've had some injuries, whether it's O-line or running backs, and they've kind of went wholesale in on the passing game where I think at this point of the season right now, they feel like they have everything rolling. They're using their personnel well, mixing and matching, different groupings, and more consistently sticking to the run game. They're a pass-first offense, but I think that commitment to the run game makes them more balanced, and it helps them out in situations like the red zone where you're seeing, pretty impressive numbers.
Jim, when we talked to the players after the game, I think it was Torchio who was talking about Ricardo Hallman, saying right now he feels like the weight of this loss is on his shoulders, and we have to tell him, hey, a lot of plays could have affected the outcome. How do you handle that as a coach? You've seen young guys when you played here, freshmen struggle, and how do you handle trying to get him back to where he was playing consistently and make sure he doesn't let what happened Saturday affect him moving forward?
Yeah, I think you have to be – hopefully you can rely on the relationships you build, right? Being open, being honest, right? Critiquing hard when you need to, but loving them up when they need that. And guys like Ricardo, they want to come in on Sunday and go, what can I do better, right? That's the number one thing about a lot of our players is they want the criticism. They want that hard coaching. When the emotions are down, you got to find a way to build them up. You got to find a way to keep them confident to go out there and do it again, right? Because the worst thing that can happen is when guys hit the field, it's that PTSD, right? They get out there and they get a little shell-shocked or they play cautious. As soon as you start doing that, you can't play, right? You can't play. So how do you maintain confidence while also pushing and pushing the right buttons, hopefully, in order to get them to just lock in and focus on their technique and what they have to do to execute a little bit better.
Yeah, I know last week was obviously a unique situation with Tyler having to step in at that jumbo tight end role. Do you expect that to be where he plays this week, or do you think he's healthy enough and able to go back to the offensive line?
I think he's still day to day a little bit, coming off of an ankle injury where you knew his snaps had to be a little bit limited, and that was the correct role last week. At what point is he going to be healthy enough to really push and get back and play guard consistently, or does he stay in that role? I think it's a little bit day to day and week to week with him. Hopefully the bye week will help a number of our guys who are dealing with kind of the wear and tear of the first part of this season. So unfortunately, we got Purdue before that one. So we got to find a way, whatever we have to do, right, to get to this Saturday with as much health and energy as we can and the best plan to go win.
Jim, talking to a couple of guys last week, they thought the game against Northwestern was the first 60-minute performance for the defense. Was last week, you touched on it a little bit earlier, was Michigan State kind of a return to issues with execution and just every play consistency?
Yeah, I think that's clear. We played well early, right? You give up the touchdown off of that sudden change after getting a huge, red zone stop there inside of the 2-yard line, 1-yard line. So I thought guys responded to adversity early and played physical, played fast. We needed to find a way to create a turnover in there some way, right? We needed to find a way when we pin them inside the 5 to get a huge stop because we were in control of the game up until that point. And as the offense was working through some struggles, we have to be that rock on defense. That's when we've played good football around here, we've been able to handle that. And then in big moments, we got to rise up and be even better. So that's the standard that we have on this defense, and we haven't been getting it done, right? I haven't been getting it done. I got to give them more opportunities to be aggressive, more opportunities to make plays, and when the players are in position to make them, they got to execute as well. So that's how we want to play, right? We were doing a great job early in the game, and things started to slip, and we got on our heels. And number one's tackling, right? It's been mentioned a number of times. We tackle like that, you're going to extend drives, right? You're going to give teams opportunities to get aggressive on you, and that's the number one thing that we have to clean up. There was a number of communication issues that we had that did not hurt us, right? That could have been big situations. So to the naked eye, it looked maybe a little bit cleaner than it was at times. But number one, tackling got exposed in a big way, and we have to get that corrected here this week versus a team that loves to put the ball on the perimeter and get the ball in their athletes' hands.
Jim, you talked about the Purdue's offense, but looking at Charlie Jones, just what's been his impact as a transfer from Iowa, known mostly maybe as more as a special teams guy, now really thriving within that offense and leading the Big Ten in a couple categories for receiving?
I think he's very balanced. I mean, he's a great route runner, but he has tremendous speed, right? So he makes corners uncomfortable with his big playability down the field, but he's very technical getting in and out of routes, and great rapport with the quarterback, right? The quarterback trusts him. They have great timing. They'll move him around enough, right, to create some matchups for him, and just playing with a ton of confidence. I think he knows week in and week out. As a receiver, when you know week in and week out you're going to get a lot of touches, it frees you up. You don't overthink. You don't try to be perfect on certain things. And to me, you just see that confidence come out in how he plays and how he attacks the football, how he attacks DBs.
Jim, I remember when Greg Gard took over for Bo, he talked about how you think what this job is, and then every day there's something new that pops up. I'm curious, are you finding that out for yourself too? There's new stuff every day that you probably didn't anticipate in some ways? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, the initial response is truly day to day, hour to hour, right? What do I have to say yes or no to, and how do you handle the emotions, and what gives us the best chance to win? And obviously the farther you get away from that day settles into more of the true responsibilities of the job and what is asked of this position, from a communication with your staff to recruits to players, managing the day-to-day and the long-term decisions, right? So those are becoming more real conversations as this season goes on. And a lot of them, it was said, just get me to the bye week, guys. Like, give me 3 weeks here to hopefully settle things down and let the dust settle and kind of see where we're at. And I've been very blessed to have a great staff around me in a number of ways to be able to just handle what needs to be handled and allow me to focus on winning football games, knowing that in the near future, there's a lot of really big conversations that need to happen. What did I agree with that we were doing under Coach Christ? What would I do differently? Who's involved, right? Like, there's so many conversations that are going to happen the second half of the season that, I've just asked people to be patient with a little bit in order to try to settle things down and hopefully right the ship and go us in the right direction. And the one thing, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm proud of how our guys are playing from an effort standpoint. They're staying together. Part of my message last week was we need to know who's in and out, right, and make it clear, right? If you're a leader, lead, right? If you want to be a huge part of what we got going on here, but you're not a leader, grab on to somebody going the right direction, right? And if you're on the fence or out, let me know, please, right? That's the fastest way to get things rallied and get things calmed down is knowing who's on your side. And I think our guys responded really well to that with how hard they played. Now we need to play better, right? That was the message coming out of Illinois, going into Northwestern. Well, we played one really clean game. We see what happens when we don't, right? We played good enough in a lot of cases, in a lot of ways to win, but we didn't get it done, right? So the message still falls back on playing cleaner football, playing better, eliminating penalties, eliminating turnovers, and in critical moments you got to make plays. So if we can focus on the guys who we know are fully committed and fix those problems, we're going to have a lot of success down the stretch. And if we get distracted by a lot of things that are right out there to distract us, then we're going to have issues.